Ex-Con Media.
In any self-defense situation, there are really two fights. First, there's the physical one, which might be over in a matter of seconds. But then there's the legal one, and that one can go on for years. And that second fight, the one that happens inside a courtroom, that's very often the one that matters most. I mean, we've all been there, right? That sudden spike of adrenaline, your heart starts pounding, you feel threatened or just totally disrespected. It's a deeply human experience. But the real question, the most important one, is what do you do in those moments that come next? Because once that adrenaline starts to fade, this huge question is just hanging in the air. In the cold light of day, in the eyes of the law, were your actions legally justified? Were you a defender, or did you just become a defendant? Let's figure out how you can answer that. To help us navigate this, we're going to use a really unique framework. It comes from one of the greatest strategists in history, the legendary samurai Miyamoto Musashi. We're going to map the 5 essential elements of a legal self-defense claim onto the 5 rings or books from his classic text, the Book of 5 Rings. So, this is our roadmap. Each one of Musashi's rings, earth, fire, water, wind, and the void, is going to represent a core legal principle that you absolutely must have on your side. So, let's start with the very ground beneath our feet, the Book of Earth. So, the first ring is the Book of Earth. For Musashi, the earth was the foundation of everything, the straight and true path. In the legal world, this is the principle of innocence. It is the absolute bedrock that your entire self-defense claim has to be built on. It's a really simple rule, but it is completely non-negotiable. You cannot be the one who started the fight. The second you become the initial aggressor, whether you threw the first punch or just provoked the whole thing, your legal right to claim self-defense just vanishes. Now, you really have to understand the legal gravity here. When you claim self-defense, you're not saying I didn't do it. You're actually admitting it. You're saying, yes, I did that, but I was justified in doing it. You're confessing to the act, and that's exactly why proving your innocence is the critical first step. And be careful, because you can lose your innocence in really subtle ways. Just yelling something like, "Bring it on!" or clenching your fists and getting into a fighting stance, a jury could see any of those things as you being the one who escalated the situation. And just like that, you're the aggressor. All right, let's move on to our second ring, the Book of Fire. For Musashi, fire was all about the heat and intensity of battle. Legally, this maps perfectly to the element of imminence. It's all about the immediacy of the threat. With this one, timing is everything. Your right to self-defense only exists as a response to a danger that's happening right now. Not 5 minutes ago, and not something that might happen tomorrow. It has to be a threat that requires an instant response. And this distinction is absolutely critical. An attacker lunging at you with a knife, that is an imminent threat. Someone screaming, "I'm going to get you tomorrow," that is not. Your right to defend yourself exists only in that specific window of time, not a second before and not a second after. So how can you possibly judge this in the heat of the moment? Well, here's a great tool that folks use, the AOJ triad. For a threat to be legally imminent, the attacker needs to have the ability to seriously hurt you, the opportunity to do it right then and there, and they have to be putting you in jeopardy by showing the intent to harm you. All 3 have to be there. Okay, our third ring is the Book of Water. Musashi famously wrote that water is flexible. It always conforms to the shape of its container. In self-defense law, this is a perfect analogy for the principle of proportionality. Your response has to be flexible and conform to the level of the threat. You've probably heard the saying, you can't bring a gun to a knife fight. Well, legally, it's more like you can't bring a cannon to a fist fight. The force you use has to be proportional to the threat you're facing. Put simply, you can only use deadly force if you are facing a deadly threat, a threat of death or serious bodily injury. Let's see how this plays out. If someone's just in a verbal argument with you, the justified response is to try to de-escalate, maybe create some space. If someone gives you a hard shove, well, pushing them back to create distance might be justified. An attack with a knife, that can justify deadly force. But if someone hits you with a pillow, you can't respond by hitting them with a rock. Your force has to match theirs. All right, let's get to the fourth ring, the Book of Wind. For Musashi, this was about understanding the styles and tactics of others. Legally, it's about understanding that sometimes the absolute best style is to avoid the fight in the first place. One of the most powerful avoidance tools is what some people call emotional judo. Instead of meeting anger with more anger, you redirect it. Simple things, like just acknowledging how someone is feeling, or offering them choices instead of demands. These can completely diffuse a situation before it ever gets physical. Now, it is also so important to know the laws where you live. Some states have what's called a duty to retreat, which means you legally have to try to escape if you can do it safely. But most states are stand your ground states, where you don't have a legal duty to retreat. But even in those states, the law isn't the whole story. Because here's the thing, even if the law says you can stand your ground, a jury will almost always look at the facts and ask that one simple question. Why didn't you just walk away if you had the chance? Trust me, winning a fight you could have avoided isn't a victory at all. And finally, we get to the book of the void. Musashi described this as the part you can't see, the spirit of your strategy. And in the law, this is the crucial, intangible element that ties everything else together: reasonableness. This is a critical two-part test. First, you have to have genuinely, subjectively believed that you needed to use force. That's what was going on in your head. But, and this is the big one, a hypothetical, reasonable person put in your exact situation would have to agree with your decision. That's the objective part. And this isn't just a theory, this is literally the kind of instruction a jury gets. They are told not to get inside your head, but to decide what an ordinary, prudent person would have believed and done in those exact same circumstances. So here's the bottom line. Just feeling afraid isn't a legal defense. Your fear has to be based on objective, tangible evidence, facts that would make any reasonable person in your shoes feel the exact same way. Okay, so let's tie this all together. Think of it like a checklist. To justify your actions, you had to be the innocent party. That's earth. You had to be facing an imminent threat. That's fire. You had to respond with proportional force. That's water. You had to have tried to avoid the conflict if you safely could. That's wind. And finally, everything you did had to be objectively reasonable. That's the void. You have to check every single one of those boxes. If you fail on just one, your entire legal defense can fall apart. At the end of the day, anyone can just react in a moment of panic. But can you respond with strategy? Can you consider these 5 rings even when you're under incredible stress? That is the difference between a fighter and a warrior. And in our world today, it's what separates a defender from a defendant.
I am the AI avatar for XCon Media. If you got anything from the video, please like it up, hype it up, and subscribe to the channel. Also, don't forget to share it to your friends. Okay, listen up, dirtbags. I tried to be nice, but y'all don't understand the assignment. I said hit the follow button. How hard is that? If you made it this far in the video, that shouldn't be a problem. These videos take a lot of time and effort, so that's the least you can do. It doesn't cost you a thing. Thanks. Bye.